would like to call the December 17th, 2025 City Council regular meeting to order. Would everyone please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Gary, Chilson,
Present.
Hutchings,
Here.
Nelson,
Present.
Parker, Wackler,
And she has an excused absent.
Student Rep Kincaid.
Present.
You have a quorum.
Thank you. May I have a motion to approve the agenda and consent agenda? Mr. Perry. May I have a second, please? Ms. Hutchings, thank you. Are there any changes to the agenda or consent agenda? Would the clerk please read the consent agenda?
November 12th, 2025 City Council meeting minutes. The following ordinances are being introduced and are scheduled for public hearing on January 14th, 2026. Ordinance 2025-037, clarifying the terms of office for the mayor and city council members during the transition to a November regular election cycle, introduced by the mayor. 2025-038, amending Soldotna Municipal Code Chapter 3.04, Budget and Capital Improvement Program, portions of Chapter 3.06, Financial Control, and Section 3.16.020, Imposition of Short-Term Lodging Tax, introduced by the City Manager. 2025-039, amending the Soldotna Municipal Code, SMC Section 17.10.385, to establish a uniform administrative permit requirement for all short-term rental units, and amending Section 17.10.130, 17.10.260, 17.10.315, and 17.10.400 for consistency, introduced by Mr. Chilson. 2025-040, amending Soldotna Municipal Code Chapter 2.20, Officers and Employees Bond Requirements, introduced by the City Manager. 2025-041, increasing estimated revenues and appropriations by an amount not to exceed $1,738,800 in the Utility System Capital Improvements Fund for an anticipated increase in the Alaska Clean Water Fund loan from the State of Alaska Department of Environmental Conservation for the Biosolids Dewatering Replacement Project, introduced by the City Manager. The following resolutions are also on the consent agenda. Resolution 2025-039, requesting the Governor of the State of Alaska designate by proclamation the area of the Upper Cook Inlet East Side Setnet Fishery as an area impacted by an economic disaster in 2025 and supporting a recovery plan, introduced by the Mayor. 2025-040, adopting an alternate allocation for the FY26 Shared Fisheries Business Tax Program and certifying that this allocation method fairly represents the distribution of significant effects of fishery business activities in FMA 14, Cook Inlet area, introduced by the City Manager. 2025-041, authorizing the City Manager to apply to the State of Alaska Department of Environmental Conservation, ADEC, for a loan increase from the Alaska Clean Water Fund for Phase 2 construction portion of the Biosolids Dewatering Replacement Project, introduced by the City Manager. 2025-042, establishing the 2025 City of Soldotna legislative priorities, also introduced by the City Manager. The last item on the consent agenda is Action Memorandum 2025-025, confirming mayoral appointments to advisory boards and commissions, introduced by the Mayor.
Are there any public comments on any of the items just read by the clerk? Anyone here in the audience wishing to speak on any of those items on the consent agenda? Looking at Zoom, I see no hands raised there. Having no one wishing to speak, the approval of the agenda and consent agenda is back before the council. Are there any council objections to approving the agenda and consent agenda? Seeing and hearing none, the agenda and consent agenda are approved by unanimous consent. Next item on the agenda is presentation with prior notice. First up is the Friends of the Field House, represented by Mr. Tim Dillon.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for giving me an opportunity to give you a little bit of an, can you hear it? Uh-huh. Um, Giving you a little bit of an update on what's been going on. But I have to start my comments with yesterday. I was actually over at Froso's, and Kyle can tell you that whenever we met about the field house, we would go over there and have salad, the salad bar over at Froso's. So I was meeting someone for lunch to talk about the Friends, and I got there a couple minutes early. And I'm listening to these two women at the next table over talking about the field house, and about the one woman was talking about how she walks every day. And, it's so great because there's such a diverse population and different kinds of people there. And she's now bringing her grandkids over in the afternoons to play with different things and do things. So I got up and I just went over to their table and I said, "Excuse me, could you please tell me about this field house?" Because I didn't have anything on that recognized who I was. And they started talking, and it was, just one thing after another. And it really made your heart feel warm. It really, really did. And when they got done, I said, "Thank you very much." And I stuck my hand out to shake their hand, and I said, "My name is Tim Dillon." And the one woman was like, "You and Mr. DeLifka were involved with this." I said, "Yeah." I said, "So I apologize for not identifying myself, but I really needed to hear this." And I said, "Unsolicited." So I wanted to share that with you because we made the right decision and we did the right thing, and people are loving it. A little bit of an update. So far, we've given out a little bit over $16,000 worth of scholarships. We've had a variety of awardees between softball and hockey and soccer and rugby. And then we've also given the front desk some discretionary punch cards so that if a young man or young lady comes in there and they don't have the money, that they can go and use the facility. And we've been asked before, people have asked, is there a form how are you qualifying people for that? The school district already qualifies our young people. If you qualify for free or reduced lunches, you get free or reduced lunch. So instead of us having to worry about any of the liability of the forms or any of that kind of stuff, if they go ahead and say they have qualified for free or reduced lunch, they automatically get in for free. And when I say they get in for free, they don't pay for it, but then the Friends of the Field House, we pick up the tab and make sure it gets paid for. We also, rather than underwriting people's fundraising efforts, we'd prefer to teach people how to fundraise. So instead of us, when an organization comes to us and says, "Can you help us with the fees?" Instead, we're putting together gift baskets, and they can use that in their auctions. And we're finding that they're going to be able to make more money off of that than us underwriting something. And that's really been pretty cool. And that's going to continue to develop. We've talked about pickleball, not just time to play pickleball, but also maybe some instruction and different things. So that's going to evolve. And one of the things that we've asked the groups that when we give them a basket is for them to get back to us, tell us how much they made on it, and if there was any suggestions that they have for the future. So we're doing that. But let me throw out some numbers for you. As far as using the facility as a whole, in September, the average was 125 people a day. In October, jumped up to 172 per day. And in November, it was 208. On November 20th, that was the highest day, and that was 414 people. And that was a variety of things between walking, homeschooling, court rentals, things of that nature. Now, tot time was something that we had talked about right from the beginning about giving some space and some time for the moms with their youngsters. September, they averaged 6. Then the word caught on, and then it was 28 in October, 38 in November. And on November 12th, they had 60 kids there on that one day. The walking track has been a huge, huge hit. September was 66, October 98, November 131. And November 24th, again, right around Thanksgiving, there were 224 people walking that day. Open gym, September was 42, October 53, November 47. September 30th had 126 users. So we're seeing the numbers go up as we thought they would, as people are finding it out about it and all, which is awesome. We're still working on our nonprofit stuff. We haven't developed everything completely. We're actually working with Bridges right now, so we can accept money and do things through Bridges, which is really, really helpful. One other thing, you know, this year, in fact, I talked to the staff earlier today, and they said that in the youth sports, as of today, they have 202 soccer players between kindergarten and fifth grade that have signed up so far for this year's soccer, and 120 flag football players between fourth grade and high school seniors. And they were also pointed out to me that it was kids from Sterling to Tustamina and all schools in between, with also a lot of homeschool kids. Again, this could not be possible without your leadership and helping us make sure that we could help with the quality of living here in Soldotna. But we also need to make sure every time we have the chance to thank the hospital that we thank them, because that really has opened up the doors and helped us in a huge way with our folks being able to do that walking. One of the things I actually was talking with Shannon earlier today from the hospital, and mentioning to her that, you know, I've met the new CEO, but I really don't know her. And Jeff and I are going to try and get over there right after the first of the year, so we can get a chance to talk to her and just continue to develop that relationship, so that she knows what we're doing and what we're trying to do. In closing, I think the biggest thing that we need to continue to take a look at is storage. I think, you know, the staff, Joel and his staff, do a tremendous job, and they're learning every day of the week of what they need and how to do things. But as things continue to move forward, I would just ask that that be something that be considered. And the last thing is that one of the things that Jeff and I were very, very cognizant of right from the beginning was that we did not want to compete with the local businesses. We didn't want to compete with any of the local gyms. And I can tell you, as I'm sitting here today, I haven't heard from anybody complaining about that you're taking our customers away. And believe me, there's several of them that would call me at all hours of the day and night if that was what was going on. So I feel really, really good about that. In closing, I just wanted to recognize we've got a couple of our friends of the field house that are here. Steve Manley, who really has been just tremendous on keeping us on a straight line with our finances and things, and making sure that our bank account is taken care of. And even though we've given out 16,000, we still have 6,000 or 7,000 in the bank. So I want to make sure you know that we didn't just drain everything. And then Kathy Ginzel is also here. And we have gotten recognized by a couple of different groups. In fact, Kathy brought with her, I guess today at the chamber, we were recognized for our organization. And then we also received a plaque from Hope because of the stuff that we had done for them, and some scholarships and things. So we'll be giving those back to the city to be able to, we're hoping that maybe they can get hung up in that little room on the side or something along those lines. But it's really, really exciting, and be more than happy to answer any questions. And I'm sure these two guys aren't shy if you've got questions for them. But I just wanted to say thank you and just give you a little bit of an update of what we've been doing, and hopefully you haven't heard any real complaints.
Any questions from Mr. Perry?
There's no question, Tim, that you're speaking of a success story, and again, the many different people who have worked on it. It's wonderful. I'm wondering, and this may not be a question that can be answered, but how close to capacity are we at in terms of usage of the field house?
I don't think we are anywhere as close to that, but I'm sure Joel would speak to that. I think the capacity piece is going to be more of an issue when we have some of the different shows during especially when they're putting up tables and chairs and things all over on the floor. So when you're worried about the fire, egress and things of that nature. But I don't know if Joel wanted to say anything.
I mean, if we want to build another one, I
There we
will
go.
definitely
That's where
fill
I
it.
was going.
So
Next year.
yeah, it is well used, and definitely once our soccer and football programs start in January, we're going to be pushing the envelope with availability. But it also opens. I mean, even at the hockey rink, we're playing hockey at midnight, and so it's gonna force people to expand when they're actually getting in there. So
Follow up.
Go ahead.
So are there waiting lists for many things?
yes, right now as we're planning out our winter programming, people are not getting everything that they want. So we're juggling, making sure everybody has some access, whether that's rugby, whether that's the comp soccer, whether that's pickleball or whatever the sports are. Nobody's getting everything that they are asking for as far as court and turf rentals.
So in general policy, first come, first serve.
We have a booking policy, and there's sort of like our programs first, and then nonprofits and kids. We try to obviously get in the after school time, and then adults later. So there's kind of a shuffle game that we play. But we also want to make sure that everybody gets a chance, including fencing, including juggling, including whatever other random athletic or activity that needs the space. We're open for everybody.
Thank you.
If I could say one other thing to that, one of the things that we did while we were exploring building the field house was Jeff and I and the committee met with countless different groups from the full spectrum of not just football and basketball, like the juggling and the rugby and everything, to hear what they wanted. And I think that really went into a lot of the thought when Joel and his staff and the Parks and Rec Committee came up with the priority list. It wasn't as if Joel said, well, I don't like this sport or I don't like that. No, there was a lot of thought through the whole thing, and it was based on what we were being told by people and also what they needed and were there other opportunities in other places. Because remember, when you open up that facility, all of a sudden there becomes opportunities at some of the schools. So we want to try and make sure that everybody's playing together, and you can't play volleyball on turf. And it doesn't make any sense to be taking that turf up and down 3 times a day. You can't. It takes a lot of time and energy, but it actually opened up the opportunity for volleyball, to be able to play at some of the schools. The other thing I'm going to tell you, Dave, and you probably will understand this better than anybody else up there, is that closer to February, March, when your futsal folks, because futsal is a little different than just playing soccer, because futsal is not played on turf. It's played on a gym floor. And that's what they play at the Arctic Winter Games and a variety of other tournaments in February or March on the international side. So some of those folks will wind up going to the schools also because they need to be able to practice, because it's a lot different to play on turf than a gym floor. So, but I've got to give the administration credit. They spent a lot of time listening, and when they had questions, Joel grabbed me one day and says, "Okay, we need to talk about lines and what lines need to be what color, because if you're going to put multiple lines on a court, how do you do those things?" So, but if you guys want to build another facility, I'm sure I can talk Jeff and I into helping out with it. But realistically, what we need right now is we've got to get some storage. We have to get some storage. We spent a lot of money, and you spent a lot of money on turf and floor and all that stuff. And it's going to last a lot longer if we can take better care of it with an area for it to be able to be stored properly.
Thank you to the whole committee and wrestling.
Any other questions from the council? Comments? I do have a couple here. Just as a kind of a sideline, here about probably less than a month ago, we had a call from Fairbanks. And they're looking at trying to build a similar facility, a little bit larger, and it'd probably have different installation. And their estimates came in substantially, and I mean substantially, 3 to 4 times higher than what we built this one for. And we had a long discussion, Joel, Kyle, Jeanette, I think there was a couple other people involved in it, probably for close to an hour on how we went through the process. And they're very seriously looking at it. And I think if you've read in the paper lately, Homer's also looking at maybe not a similar facility, but some kind of a rec center type thing. As far as the use of that facility, I would ask Joel, it's probably receiving more use than what we projected to begin with. We're probably a year or so ahead of what the use we projected. So everybody talks about it. I haven't heard any negatives. I don't think we will ever hear any negatives. If anything, they want more. And that's something we'll have to look at in the future. So any other comments from the council? Vice Mayor Parker.
Thank you, Mayor Whitney. Thank you, Tim, for coming. And I've had the opportunity to walk at the field house quite a bit. And it's always fun to walk because I've made new friends as I'm walking, and I'm like, I've been seeing you quite a bit here. What's your name? And so, I met the Tajik ladies, and I know some of their family, but I didn't know them. But I've been seeing people practicing soccer, volleyball, softball practice on the turf, as we've had the turf in the 2 gyms. Pickleball's been definitely very busy, but yeah, the field house, no matter, and I go various times of the day, there's always people there. Sometimes of the day there's not as many, but other times of the day there's quite a few, and people do like it, and it's working.
I would agree with you. And I think part of it, again, goes back to the administration and the staff that's over there. I think Jen and the folks over there are doing a great job, and, they're learning as they go. And I think that's, customer service is so important, especially when you start talking about quality of living. And it's a great facility, it really is.
I would have been part of those statistics in November, but I was doing my walking in Mexico.
Oh, okay. That's why it was down by 1.
And it was nice to see other council members also using the field house.
Anything else? Thank you very much for the report.
You're welcome.
Look forward to even a better one next time, a bigger one, I should say.
Yes, sir.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you. Next up on the agenda, this one will be a little bit different.
More exciting.
The annual comprehensive financial report. We're going to talk about money now instead of goodness and happiness and good health.
Well, this will be goodness and happiness as well, thankfully. Hi, everyone. Joy Mariner. I recognize, I think, everyone here. So it's lovely to be back with you. I'm the partner on your audit engagement. I actually went with my team to the field house because I figure we have to test the spending of the bond money, and it should actually be there. I probably failed as an auditor if I didn't actually verify the things there. So we went in, I bought a day pass, and then I made Melanie show me where it hit the bank account so I could make sure all the cash receipting process was working properly. And we walked around the track one time, and it was really fun. It's just a great facility. And as a mother of, well, now 2 teenagers in high school, one's graduated, I'm sure I will be using it and be in the community more because of it. So I'm excited for that. And congratulations, it's fun to see. So you have a couple documents. Hopefully you've had them for a little bit and had a chance to look through them. One is your financial statements. We call it the Annual Comprehensive Financial Report, or ACFR. This thing is a little bit large. Melanie prepares this, and we'll go through this second. Really just describes the financial results of the city for the year. And the other is the audit results PowerPoint, which is what we prepare for you, as well as the auditor's opinion on the financials. And I thought I'd start with the results and just go through at a very high level some of the results of the audit. I'd love this to be a discussion with your permission, Mr. Mayor. So if there's any questions that you have, please interrupt me along the way. First thing I will stop on is on page 5 of the wrap-up. I guess I should wear glasses now. I don't know, wasn't sure if that was a 9 there, a small. Page 5 of the wrap-up kind of just describes executive summary, what's in here. So one thing I just want to note is your 2024 financial statements were submitted to the Government Finance Officers Association, and you did receive a certificate of excellence in financial reporting last year. And it's also submitted then now this year. That is due by December 31, and you are well in advance of that for submission. So we fully expect you to receive that certificate again this year. Let's cover just the kind of overview and status on page 7. So our audit is complete. You can see on the third bullet point there that we did issue an unmodified, that's a clean opinion on the financial statements. That was last week. Was it last week? 2 weeks ago. So December 4th. Time is flying by. And the other thing I'll note here is that we did issue a report on internal control over financial reporting. We follow government auditing standards for your audit, which requires more in-depth look at compliance with laws and regulations, those kinds of things. And we didn't have any identified findings for that report either. You did not hit the threshold for federal awards. So you didn't require a federal single audit this year. One thing I'll just say is it's been a few years since I could say that. And so it's actually kind of a little breath of fresh air that we get a little bit of a break. I think Melanie has really worked hard with her team to make sure you're compliant with your grants. And we haven't had any issues in the past, but it's been a rough ride for the last 5 years, 6 years since COVID with the number of grant funds that have been running through. It's really good for the community. It's been helpful, but there's a huge lift with that. You do have several grants, but not enough to hit the threshold. So for 2025, the threshold was $750,000 of expenditures. In 2026, it will go up to $1 million. So if you don't spend more than $1 million of federal funding, you don't qualify for that single audit. It saves you money. That doesn't mean you don't have to comply with your grants. You still have to comply with them. It's just that we don't audit that compliance. Let's cover just a couple things on page 9. Significant risk areas are things we pay particular close attention to. One of those is revenue and how it's recognized. So is it recognized in the right period? Is it recognized at the right amount? We look at your tariff sheets, your approved rates. Are they being charged at the right rates in the right period? And then we also look at management override. And what that means is if something is initially posted here, let's say in this expense account, and it's later moved from this place to another place, why was it moved? Was it moved properly? There's lots of reasons why it would need to be. For example, if there's an accrual, a change between the 2 years, it's posted in 1 year is when you paid it, but it actually relates to another year. Those are all real legitimate reasons for management override and closing the books and records. But anytime there's a manual adjustment like that, just carries a little bit more risk and something that we look closely at. We didn't identify any issues with those, but we do look pretty carefully at the manual adjustments that are posted. We did not identify any adjustments this year. So the financial statements that you're seeing should look fairly familiar because they're based on your books and records that you've been receiving regular financial information about throughout the year. And then the last couple slides I want to cover here on page 11 is really related to internal control. So as auditors, we're required to understand the checks and balances in place here at the city. How are, for example, timesheets approved? How are checks approved before they're paid? Are there multiple people involved in checking the books and records? And internal controls can be preventive. Preventive are things that you would try to catch things on the front end. For example, you don't want everybody here at the city to be a check signer. You wouldn't want to have everybody have access to cash or to the actual check stock. Others are detective on the back end. Is something being checked to make sure it's right after the fact? For example, bank reconciliation is a really important thing to do, but you can't do it until you have your bank statement. So that's a detective control. Our goal as auditors is to make sure that there are key controls in place to ensure these financial statements end up properly reported. So are there good checks and balances to ensure that there isn't fraud or error that could occur here at the city? And then we're required to report to you anything that rises to the level that we believe you need to take action. That would be a significant deficiency or material weakness. We didn't identify any of those this year. You have one continuing control deficiency, which we don't believe you need to take action on. I just like to remind you that it is there. You do have super user access for both your finance director and your HR manager. This is similar to the past. It's the way you have it set up. And barring being, either hiring other employees or having higher level involvement of many employees in the process, I would say it's fairly common operationally to do this. So our recommendation here is just that you continue to do those, what I would consider to be robust compensating controls. So on the back end, making sure that review is still there. It just means that these people have administrative level access in the IT system. So they could add a new user, or they could change the access of any users that they want. We do look at those change management logs, look at who has access to what, is an appropriate level of access, and didn't identify any issues there either. Otherwise, I remind people on page 11, there are some estimates in your statements. We're going to look at those briefly here in a moment. So not every number in the financials is a hard and fast dollar. You know how much you have in the bank account, for example, but the amount of, say, the pension liability is an estimate that's driven at the state level. You do have estimates of depreciation of your assets. And the field house is a new big asset that's depreciating in the financial statements. And so I'll point out a few of the big key financial statement items in a moment, but I just want to remind you of those things. And then you did adopt 2 new statements this year, neither of which had a significant impact on your financials. So I just bring that up because one of them was actually a fairly big statement on compensated absences. That's accrued leave, sick leave, those kinds of things. And you've always recorded accrued leave in your financials, but because of the nature of your leave, some of our cities are having to add additional liabilities for sick leave or different types of leave that they offer. Your leave bank policy is such that you had already recorded those items in the past. So you didn't, if you have any affiliation with other cities or hear about that, they're having to add additional liabilities. For you, it didn't have an impact on your financials this year. So I know I covered a lot, but are there any questions on the wrap up before we touch base on the financials?
Doesn't look like it.
Okay, so I promise not to go through all 100+ pages, 107 pages of this, but I do want to just quickly look at the introduction and the table of contents, because I think it's helpful maybe to go through what's here so you can refer back to it. This is a good reference document. I've said this last year too. This is something that you can refer back to throughout the year if somebody's asking you questions about the city. The transmittal letter of transmittal, just describes your city. So if you're just trying to find the right words, how to describe the city of Soldotna to somebody from, outside, for example, that you can find that there. You have your certificate here, list of principal officials, and an organizational chart. And then the financial section starts here with our auditor's report. And I already mentioned that was a clean or unmodified opinion, so I'm not going to go through that in any more detail. But the next document there, the management discussion analysis, has its own tab. And it's a really good summarized read. You can see comparative information from last year to this year, what changed. I'm not going to cover that in detail, but it's really not that many pages. This is what I would encourage you to read. These 8-9 pages is worth the read in terms of just seeing how things changed from last year. And just as an example, on page 10, you can find out why general fund revenues increased. And it was related to sales taxes increased of 237, along with a lot of other things. So I just bring that up because I think it's important for you to know where to find the resources. And if you're wondering how things changed from last year to this year, that we call it MD&A is a really good resource for that. The next section are the actual basic financial statements and notes to the basic financials. I'm going to cover a few key highlights on those in a moment. And then you have a lot of supplementary information in the back sections where you can find fund level information. If you want to actually know what's happening at the Tourism Enhancement Special Revenue Fund, or what's happening a little more detail in the general fund, you can find that information there. And then the last section here is the statistical section. You have 15 different statistical tables. Great data on population data, changes over 10 years of data. So if you just want to see what was happening with charges for services for over the last 10 years, you can find that data there. Principal taxpayers, capital assets, those types of areas there. Again, I'm not going through all that detail. I just want you to know what's available to you. So let's cover just a few quick highlights. I'm going to turn to page 15, which is under the tab Basic Financial Statements. And then I'll open up for questions for those of you who read all 100 pages and have specific things. But on page 15, you can see total assets of the city, 130, almost 5 million, 135 million, largely comprised of capital assets. So these are things that you can't turn around and sell tomorrow, right? This is the field house. This is this building. It's the vehicles, equipment, water facilities, all of those things fall into capital assets. And then you also have cash and investments and receivables, those types of things. So total assets, things that you own, 135 million. And liabilities are things that are owed to others, about 27 million this year. Keep in mind that the pension liability is not something you can pay off. It's an estimate of how much you'll be paying over the life of the pension system at the state. And then you have 13.5 million in long-term bonds, loans, and notes payable. These are your DEC loans. It's your bond, everything falling into that. There's also an amount that's due in the next year. So in total, it's about 16 million. And then if you want to see a little more information at the fund level, page 17, this does break out those assets and liabilities, takes out those long-term things and shows you what's operationally happening at each fund. The one thing I just kind of want to point out here is you do have fund balance of 12.7 million in the general fund. That's a number that I monitor, on my own, looking at your financial statements. I look closely at the fund balance number. You do have $5 million set aside for unexpected events. That's in the 5.3 million. There's a little bit of other stuff going on. But your total fund balance of 12.7, you have almost 5 million that's not assigned. So 5 million plus another 5 million for this unexpected event. So about 10 million in total. And total expenses in the general fund this year were just under 13 million. So really you've got kind of 9 months of availability there, which is, I think, very sound. And then if we turn one more page to page 19, I just want to point out the operational results for this year. So this is B3, and it shows revenues and expenditures. So things coming in the door primarily related to taxes, charges for services, intergovernmental revenues, for those are your grants. And then your expenditures total there of 29.76 million. This statement here does not show depreciation. Your depreciation during the year, I have that number right here. We have an estimated depreciation of about 4 million. But this is more at the fund level, about 29.76. You can see 12.67 in the general fund. And then the field house here is at 11.8. Keep in mind, this includes the capital cost that was expended during the year. So that's majority of the costs in the field house during 2025, since you opened your doors in 2026, fiscal year 26, even if it's still calendar year 25. One thing I'll note is the general fund is showing a loss, which was planned transfer out to cover your city portion of the cost of the field house. So really just overall, the city is showing a loss, but keep in mind that's really spending down the bond proceeds in the field house that were received in prior years. So you're spending that money down, and as you move forward, that money is now spent. It's really about operationally keeping that sustainable. Questions on the basic financial statements? I know I've covered a lot.
Mr. Carey, I was just wondering, with multi-year budget now as compared to single year. Does that have any particular financial effects? In terms
Oh.
of from your standpoint, and I'm going to hope you're going to say yes, positive.
Well, administratively, it's a lot easier, but I also think it allows your team operationally to have more flexibility on when things need to occur. Financially, it's a different presentation, actually, and we'll see that next year. I will say it doesn't have a lot of impact on the audit because what audit is what actually happened in that 1 year. We don't audit your budget, thankfully. I audit what actually happened after the fact. And so I think it can have really positive operational impacts and certainly administratively easier. You actually receive, I don't know if you know this, but you have a certificate of excellence for your budget as well that gets submitted through to the GFOA. And so the ability to do that every 2 years really takes a big burden off of your team. And you have a very small team, just comparatively to other communities. And I didn't say it yet, but your team does a great job. Melanie does an excellent job. To have a clean audit report with so much going on this year with the field house, I mean, it's great to see that happening with such a small team. And it's really, a lot of it is the systems that you've created where every employee knows the way they're supposed to do it and they're supposed to do it the right way, right? Like even that $5 a day fee that I paid and that it made it all the way exactly in the right time, the right day. And the next day I had the receipt from Melanie and showing me, oh no, here it is, Joy, here's where it hit the bank statement. And I just love that process was set up and thought about before it even went live.
Just to close on, I just want to say, I want to thank you because you're obviously an outside expert on the budget. And so that if there were particularly problems, I think you would know them. And so hearing you say that, again, you did say, yes, it was good, even though you didn't say it directly. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, I have to be careful with my words because I don't actually audit your budget. I audit the actuals, but we do use the budget pretty closely to see what has been allowable, what's been determined by council to be done for the year.
Thank you again.
So yeah, no other comments on the statements. I would just say the notes here are for your benefit. If you have more questions on what the detail is, feel free to refer to the notes. And then I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have on the financials from your own review. And it's a pleasure to work with you in the city. Thank you very much.
Any questions from the council? Any other comments? Seeing none, thank you again. Great working with you.
Yeah.
And it's great having a good staff to make us look good.
It sure is. Thank you very much.
They've done it every year that I've been around here. Okay, moving on to the next agenda item, which will be public comments and presentations. Are there any members of the public who would like to speak on any item not appearing on the agenda? Anyone here in the audience wishing to speak on any item not appearing on the agenda? Seeing none, we'll take a look at Zoom, and I see no hands raised there. We'll move on to item number 6, Assembly and Legislative Reports, and we have a representative from the borough, and I'm assuming Mr. Truesdale would like to make some comments.
Good evening, and thank you for having me here tonight. I do want to comment, my wife and her best friend have been walking at the field house every morning, and it's turned into quite the community of people. They know each other's names, they greet each other, they report to each other, I did an hour and 20 today, and encourage each other. It really has been a great thing. They've walked for years in the summer together, and it always just kind of dies as it gets cold, and then they wait for it to get warm again, and then they get back out. And they've just really enjoyed going and kind of being part of a community walking there in the morning. So thank you guys for that. And the field house is just phenomenal. I know there's lots of other great things going on there. It was great to hear that report. I have a couple of things to talk about, resolutions that were done at the December 2nd Assembly meeting that I thought were relevant to the city of Soldotna. And so I'll just go through those two, and I can take some questions at the end if you have any. Resolution 2025-046, requesting optional property tax assessment cap. The resolution urges the Alaska legislature to allow local governments like the borough an optional tool to cap annual increases in property assessed value at 5% from the previous year. Many other states, I think 22, have similar caps to protect long-term and fixed income homeowners from tax shocks when the market is up, while assessments still catch up over time. Ultimately, this is just a request for permission for the option. It does not impose any kind of cap. There's exceptions that were written in there, obviously, things like home improvements or if somebody were to sell their property. And again, fully optional, just a tool. It would require an ordinance to actually impose. And so the reason, obviously, is that property values in the Kenai Peninsula have risen sharply and as much as 34% over the last 3 years. That sudden jump in assessment causes sudden jumps in taxes for folks. And current Alaska law requires that essentially that it be full assessments at full market value and taxed accordingly. So that was Resolution 2025-046 that was approved by the Assembly. And then Ordinance 2025-19-21, just accepting grant funds for the Soldotna High School siding and repairs. I think most of us in the city of Soldotna are aware that as part of the bond a few years ago, the Soldotna High School is getting a facelift on the exterior. And the total cost of that was around 6.1 million, just under. The state grant piece of that was 65% of it, somewhere in the 3.95 million range. And the boroughs matches the remaining 35% at just over 2.1 million. So all the ordinance did was approve accepting the 3.95 million state grant, adding it to the borough budget for the project, and authorizes the mayor to sign the agreement. So those were the two things that, as we went through our meeting, I thought were relevant to the city of Soldotna. Are there any questions about those?
Joseph.
Thank you for the report. So just a clarification question on the grant funding that's coming from the state for the siding project so high. So last I'd heard about that project is that the costs had ballooned significantly from what it was originally conceived to the point where they decided as cost containment measures to move from siding all 4 sides of the building for X cost to do 2 sides of the building at twice that. Is this money that's coming in from the state going to allow them to now reside the entire so-high facility at this point, or is it still only to assist with siding 2 of the 4 sides?
See, I had never heard, I've been asked that exact question on multiple occasions, and I've never heard anybody tell me that they were stopping the project at half. The project, I was on the original committee that designed the project and set the calendar for it. And the calendar was always that the front side was going to be done, and then there was going to be a gap, and then the second side was going to be done. In other words, there wasn't the intent for them to work through the winter. It was to do the front 2 sections, stop, and then do the other 2 sections. If there has been any conversation about not doing the back, I have not heard that at all, other than in people asking me that question. I'm no longer on that committee that group with the borough that is making those plans. But the money that we approved, from my information, was to complete the project.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Vice Mayor Parker.
Thank you, Mayor Whitney. Has that gone out to bid for so high?
Yeah, the same group, I believe it's Blazy, that's working on the front is also, it was a full bid for the entire project. So yeah, I mean, I think it's Blazy Construction that's doing that.
I've had a lot of people ask me when the project was still planning to be done. I've just heard a bunch of different things.
Yeah, the original, again, I'm speaking from, it's been 2 years since I've been off that committee, but the original timeline was that they would start when school ended in 2025 school year, work through as long as it took to finish the front 2 sides that they're currently working on right now, that I believe has an expected finish date of here in just a few weeks, and then to restart at the end of the 2026 school year with the other 2 sides and complete it when it's completed.
Anything else from the council? Seeing nothing? Thank you very much.
All right, thank you, guys.
We'll move on to the next agenda item, number 7, public hearings, and ordinance 2025-036, accepting grant funds from the state of Alaska, Department of Education and Early Development, increasing estimated revenues and appropriations by $1,250 in the general fund to attend the Public Library Association conference introduced by the city manager. May I have a motion to enact? Ms. Hutchings.
I make a motion to enact ordinance 2025-036, accepting grant funds from the state of Alaska Department of Education.
May I have a second, please? Thank you, Mr. Nelson. And the report from the city manager.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is an annual grant award, and it has been awarded to our librarian for continuing education.
Thank you. Are there any members of the public who will wish to speak on this item, ordinance 2025-036? Seeing no one here in the audience, we'll take a look at Zoom, and there are no hands raised there. Having no one wishing to speak, the item is back before the council. Are there any council comments? Seeing and hearing none, are there any objections to enacting ordinance 2025-036? Seeing and hearing none, the ordinance is enacted by unanimous consent. Moving on to the next item, new business, and I believe all of that was on the consent agenda. And it was. We're down to the mayor and council reports, agenda item number 9. The couple of things to report. We attended, when I say we, the city manager, Vice Mayor Parker, Ms. Hutchings, Ms. Wackler attended the AML conference, the 75th anniversary of the AML in Anchorage last week. Managed to get there when the wind was blowing and about blowing us away. It finally calmed down, but it was a little chilly up there. Great event. We had some very, very good, informative sessions there. Learned a lot. Came back with a couple of ideas of things to do for the future. There was also a lot of discussion about things that have about the past for celebrating the 75th. We also attended the clerk's banquet and everything. It was a good event. The only maybe negative I might have about the whole thing is I don't want to look at another chicken dinner for probably the next 3 months or so. I think it was chicken every day at lunch. But next item, today was the Chamber of Commerce Awards banquet. The city received a Community Partner Award for platinum level. And the Friends of the Library received one for their outstanding work, and I believe they left that here, didn't they? Friends of the Fieldhouse, what did I say? Friends of the Library. Oh, well, that's where my head is. It's in reading books. And speaking of books, during the AML, one of the presenters was talking about the book by General Colin Powell, and it's I urge you, if you get a chance, read that book on leadership and stuff. It is an excellent book. I finished it in a day and a half or so, and I encourage you. I sometimes wish he had run for some public office. It would have been a good one. And we're getting cold weather now, which is, everybody needs to take aware of this for, the cold weather. One of the other awards that was presented at the AML was to our own Joel Todd, and he was the emerging leader. And in fact, there was a nice little article on Radio Kenai today, KSRM, about that award. He was a bit surprised, I believe, about receiving it. I think there was some manipulating going on and getting him there for that particular dinner that night. But I think he was surprised, and we feel honored that he was awarded that as an emerging leader. And he's done an excellent job at the field house and Parks and Rec in total. And I believe that's all I have right at the moment. Wish everybody a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. It's amazing that it's only almost just a week away, basically. I wish everyone has a great holiday and enjoys it with their families. Next, council reports on boards and commission. Mr. Carey, wish to reporting on the Planning and Zoning Commission meeting.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, the Planning and Zoning Commission met on December 3rd. It was a very good meeting on many levels. And as an example, I know I say this frequently, but Soldotna is an awesome place. It just shows the way democracy is supposed to work in terms of discussion of different issues. They had 2 primary things that they dealt with in terms of public hearings. Both things were approved. There was good discussion, particularly on the first one, dealing with the short-term rentals, and Mr. Chilson, I'd say really is an expert on that, and if you have questions, I'd say ask him. What I want to mention though, there are 2 vacancies, and again, at that meeting, and we need members of the public to serve it's very important. They make very significant decisions that come before the council. And again, I just greatly appreciate those people who are willing to serve on any of the boards or commissions, but especially the planning and zoning is technically a little bit more difficult in some ways. But again, it was a very nice meeting. One unusual things, and again, when you deal with sick children at home, having a meeting chaired by someone at home is an interesting process. And particularly, it's difficult for the person that you can see on the screen to see when someone again, here has a hand up, because quite frankly, they can't. And so again, there's just some issues. It helps to have people present. And there's no question whatsoever, when you've got a sick baby, you stay at home. But as much as possible, the public process, I think, seems to work better when we get together. We get to see each other, and we get to talk, and we even get to make some jokes with each other. But Planning and Zoning Commission was a very good meeting. They're very responsible. And again, I hope the 2 vacancies, if they're not already, that they'll be filled. But I greatly appreciate the work that was being done there. And thank you.
You said 2 vacancies? I thought we were back to only 1. Yeah. Okay. And just to add to that report a little bit, I received a letter here just, while I was gone, that there is a group called North Star Management that's looking at building a 25-unit multifamily affordable housing community in Soldotna. The location would be over on Sohai Lane and North Brentwood Street. Like I said, it'd be 6 one-bedroom units, 14 two-bedroom units, and 5 three-bedroom units. And units will target households earning 60% or less of the area median income, with corresponding restricted rents. 15 units will target households earning 50% or less of the area median income, and 2 units will target households earning 30% or less in the area median income. 5 units will be rented at market rate. It'll be 1-bedroom units, 2-bedroom, and 3-bedroom units. They're looking at a possible construction starting next year, or late spring of next year, 2026, with lease up and completion in early 2027. It's still on the drawing boards. It's not a confirmed fact right now, but it's something that's out there and looking at. And of course, that would be over by Sohai High School, right across street and up the road there. Next item was there was a Parks and Recreation meeting. Did you want to report on that, Vice Mayor Parker?
Thank you, Mayor Whitney. The Parks and Rec Advisory Committee met, they met initially in November and reviewed a proposed policy, naming policy for our facilities and our parks. And at that meeting, they decided that they wanted to spend more time, and they didn't want to just take 10 minutes at their committee meeting and talk about it, but they wanted to spend time looking at it and focusing on it. And so the work session was to delve into the proposed policy. Based on what had initially been provided to them, they've made some modifications that is now out to the advisory committee for additional comment. They will be meeting in January and possibly making a recommendation to council at that meeting, but it is something that they're working on. And when I initially talked with the city manager and the city clerk about this, it was something, because we have so many facilities and new facilities, and everybody wants something named after them, that instead of us just kind of going, oh yeah, let's name that after Jeanette. that we have a policy in place, that it makes it easier and that we have some consistency within the city, whether it's this year or whether it's 5 years from now. There's a policy and a place where people can go to identify if they wanted to get something named. So that will come back before the council sometime in 2026, but I wanted to make sure that the Parks and Rec Advisory Council was part of the process, and that they had the opportunity to input, since most of the facilities that people are talking about getting named are associated with the Parks and Rec facilities. So look for something sometime, probably Q1 2026.
Thank you. While I'm thinking of it, looking around the chamber here, there's some new artwork up, and some of it's pretty amazing looking. I have to take a closer look at all this, and really looks good. Next item on the agenda is the city manager's report.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I wanted to thank the council for adopting the resolution tonight regarding the legislative priorities. The next step in our process internally is development of the legislative guide, which is almost complete. Laura's been working on it and doing a great job, and we'll input all of the information to prepare it for our legislators, both state and federal. And also we are watching the timeframes. Our federal lobbyists are keeping us informed of when we will submit CDS requests, and then also on the state side, the CAPSIS, when we insert our projects into the CAPSIS system. The governor has released his budget, and as anticipated, we didn't anticipate that any municipalities will be included in capital funding, and that continues to be true. And it's, at this time, it's understandable with the state of the state budget right now going on. So we didn't anticipate that, and it'll be an interesting process watching what happens with the requests that are in the budget. And that's all that I have at this time.
Any questions for the city manager? Seeing none? Oh, Ms. Hutchings.
Thank you, Mayor Whitney. I heard that we lost a tree at the visitor center.
Yes, we did lose a tree at the visitor center, and we did. And I did have a discussion. We were not aware of, I would say, the city was not aware that we would be losing a tree, and found out afterwards. And I had a discussion yesterday with the chamber director, and I'm confident that we will not be losing any more trees on any of our city properties.
So I would assume that since that's something that's in their lease agreement, that they're not supposed to destroy the area, that they will be notified and could send a copy of their lease with it highlighted so they know what the rules are.
Yes, thank you. I do intend on following up in writing, and I do believe that some of the board members are aware of what's going on as well.
Any other questions? No, I'm just wondering if we should put a value on that tree. Or trees, I think there was 2 of them, wasn't there?
Yes, there were 2 trees, and we do have a tree survey. At that time, there was a value placed on the 2 trees. I would say that it would need to be increased. I believe the tree survey 2017-ish. And so there would obviously be an increase on the value of those trees.
Moving on to the next agenda item, number 11, public comments. Are there any members of the public who would like to speak on any item? Seeing no one here in the audience wishing to speak on anything, I'll take a look at Zoom, and there are no hands raised there. Next item on the agenda is council comments, and we'll start with Ms. Hutchings.
Well, I would just like to wish everybody a Merry Christmas and Happy New Year, and congratulations to Joel. And congratulations to the Field House becoming such a positive influence on the community. Thank you.
Ms. Kincaid.
Hello everybody, Merry Christmas. For some sports reports from Soldotna High School. Our hockey has been dominating and, doing what they do. In the recent games, I think they dominated like 9-1 against Homer recently over there. Wrestling, we have a lot of amazing wrestlers. Our girls team has consistently been winning state, as you guys know, and they're heading to their state tournament this weekend. So we'll wish them luck. Our basketball teams are having their first official games over in Kenai. If you guys wanted to watch, there's a tournament, so about any time. And we have a ski race this Friday at Solteshi at 3 o'clock. It's their candy cane scramble. And I'll probably be there watching too and supporting our skiers. We also have our drama debate and forensics team that has been going strong, and they've been placing in many of their events. And it's cool to go see that as a newer thing that's been happening in recent years. One thing that they do, I have some friends who got first in their improvised duet acting. So it's fun to see them practice for that and, retell what they improvised. And we also have many students, I wanted to talk about this, that are in the White Christmas play that Triumvirate is putting on. And so that is also Thursday, Friday, Saturday this weekend. And I heard that it was a great and successful weekend last week. So I wanted to say again, Merry Christmas and Happy New Year, and thank you guys.
And I'd like to commend the Sohai Council, the Student Council, for the Angel Tree project that you have going. I believe that Angel Tree is at the library.
Yeah, it's at the Soldotna Public Library. I should have talked about that too. We are having it this week, so any community members that are in need of gifts for their children, they can go and they're labeled with what kind of gifts they are, and they're all wrapped under the tree over by the fireplace. And if anybody wants to donate a gift, they can wrap it and also label it with a sticky note. We're going to put instructions up there tomorrow, so it's a little bit more clear. But yeah, up until this Saturday, and then we'll leave the tree up a little bit after.
And thank you for doing that. Mr. Carey.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We go Tuesday on December 9th. I attended a meeting at the Soldotna Library that in the community room there, dealing with the issue of Kenai Peninsula State Forest. And I'd seen different things about the meeting and was interested and said I definitely wanted to attend. And it was very well attended. Every chair was taken and there was a lot of people standing. I want to particularly comment on the State Department of Forestry and the way they provide information, they answered questions, the entire environment was just so positive. There were a number of people who came in with some anxiety and they voiced it. And again, it was a 2-hour-long meeting, actually an hour and 45 minutes because they had 15 minutes to clean everything up and be out exactly on time from 6 to 8. But they were concerned that maybe some group was actually aiming at Caribou Hills. And this was a way to get all the buildings removed. And again, the people from forestry were very clear that that was not an ulterior motive by the people putting this on. They talked about the state forests in Southeast, up in Fairbanks. Also, again, that there's 4 others, and they provide a lot of good information. I want to speak of what good dialogue there was at the meeting. If you can imagine a room that was absolutely packed, every chair was taken, around every wall were people standing, and as I said, there were people that came in that were concerned of what government was trying to do to them. It was a wonderful meeting. There were no raised voices. There were no negative comments made by anyone. They asked questions. And what was nice is there were so many people from the community, and again, this is the larger Central Peninsula community, who provided history, who talked about the fact that they had been here 30, 40, 50 years, and they'd seen different things go on in terms of the land and development. And it was just a very nice meeting. There's no decision on anything being made. There's discussion. And the comment period was up to January 17th. People could write comments. And they're just trying to decide whether or not there might be a justification for a Kenai forest. And if so, there would then be management of the forest. And so again, I just want to say it was a very good meeting, very well attended from all the different projections of ideas. Everyone presented themselves well. Everyone was listened to unquestionably. It was just a real nice thing. And I know I say it at different times, and it's part of being a government teacher in the past. I just wish that a lot of, I'll say, young people could have been to that meeting to see how government works. That adults come together with the divergent views and thoughts, and they share and they ask questions, and they're honestly, those questions are answered, and it's exactly the way that we would hope. As we get ready for the 250th anniversary of the signing of the Declaration of Independence, this is what America is supposed to be. That we can all come together and we can talk about what's for the overall public good. We can share our ideas, and we're treated with respect and honesty. And we'll see what the next step is as they will publish all the comments made. Certainly everything made at the meeting, but also all the written comments, everything that came in, that will come in or has come in. And so I'm just real pleased to go and to see how nice that was. And I'll be a little snide here. I would just remind the Board of Fish that's afraid to come down to the Kenai Peninsula and have a meeting down here because they're afraid we would be violent against them. They need to come and see, again, what the people down here are like in dealing with the forest. And it was a real nice meeting. The library staff did a great job, and especially the forestry. Thank you.
Mr. Nelson,
Just happy holidays to all.
Mr. Chilson,
Same, just Merry Christmas, and Happy New Year, and see you guys in January.
Vice Mayor Parker.
Thank you, Mayor Whitney. As the mayor indicated, we were up at the Alaska Municipal League meeting in Anchorage last week, and on Friday, I was able to turn the gavel over as president to the new president, Mayor Ledford from Wasilla. And so I am now still on the board as past president. Mayor Whitney was reelected to the Alaska Municipal League Board as well. It was a very well-attended meeting. There were 500 plus people. I don't know how many people ended up coming, but, you know, we had people from all around Alaska that were there in attendance. And as Councilmember Carey mentioned about the meeting he was at last week, the meetings that we had were, everybody was cordial, sharing ideas. There was coordination, cooperation, and you know, we're looking for new ideas, and we're looking for ways to solve problems. Should we have problems? And that's what all the communities from around Alaska were there to do, and it was successful. Yeah, the food really sucked. There's no other word for it. It was the one area where there's definitely need for vast improvement, but you know, it was good, and we will be there again next December, and the fall meeting is going to be in Fairbanks in August, where we'll be doing our legislative meeting there. So, and then in February, we will have the meeting in Juneau, meeting with legislators and talking about legislation that may or may not impact us. So, happy holidays to everybody. Be safe out there on the streets, both in your cars and as you walk. So, see you guys next year.
Next item on the agenda, executive session, and there is no need for one. Pending legislation, we have two 2025-0, Ordinance 2025-015 and Ordinance 2025-017, and those will come up for a public hearing on February 25th, 2026. Meeting announcements. I'm sorry, did I hear something? Okay. Meeting announcements, December 18th, Airport Commission meeting at 5:30 p.m. January 7th, 2026, Planning and Zoning Commission meeting at 5:30 p.m. And January 8th, 2026, Parks and Recreation Advisory Board meeting at 5:30 p.m. Ms. Hutchings.
I was noticing on the calendar it says planning and zoning is on Tuesday, the 6th, but that is incorrect, is that?
I'm looking at, so January the 7th.
So this one says 2026 meeting calendar, and it's got the 6th highlighted in blue. So I shouldn't take it out of here. Well, this one says the 6th. This one says the 7th. So we need to get rid of these two.
You were looking at the wrong year.
No, it says 2026.
Oh. Okay, it was the one I'm looking at as of the 7th.
This says 2025.
All right, well. Seeing and hearing nothing further, having nothing further on the agenda, we are adjourned.
Oh, one out in the cold.